Hello, welcome to the Overlap Rugby Podcast. This is episode number 21. We know we've been missing for a little while, so to anyone who's still there, welcome back. I guess we've left a little bit out. We were looking forward. We did watch some great games. We missed out on our chance to kind of preview the final of Super Rugby, which is a bit unfortunate, but we did have some of the little nuggets of what we had been discussing did come to fruition. It was good to see some of the Crusaders doing what they do, being the machine that they are, and the tournament being finishing up with a really good set of finals was good to see as well, because it had suffered throughout the year, and we'd been mentioning that as well. But we'll park that for a bit. We will dissect that game, but we're going to start with what is the current trend, the current thing that's happening in the world, in the rugby world, and also in Ireland, where we are. Is the Women's World Cup is in full swing. As we record this, it's a Thursday afternoon, and Ireland are going to be playing their last group game against the French women soon enough. In a couple of hours, probably we will watch it when we finish doing this. But they played 2 games so far. Looked they've been the only competitive fixtures of the tournament so far, which is a bit unfortunate for the sake of just the game in general. It's been, I don't know, some kind of cagey affairs, and more often just the more seasoned team are pulling away. There's not much by way of contest throughout the tournament.
Yeah. Before we just get into that, I just want to make a note about the lighting. Noticing it fluctuating on the camera.
Yeah.
It's just a circumstance of where we are, is that the sun keeps coming out and in and out and in. Hopefully it will settle on one or the other. But that's putting us, when it's out and flaring, we're like silhouettes in the background because the sun's coming out ahead of us. Yeah. And there's not really much we can do about that. Yeah, we have also closed all windows for the sake of the sound, so it's going to hotbox. So we'll probably be sweating enough as we get more intense. But I mean, it's for sure the Women's World Cup is a good place to start. We'll get into Super Rugby as we go on, and we have been looking at it through the lens of Ireland, and being Ireland fans, and looking at that team, and obviously big expectations that haven't been met so far. But in a general sense, I think the tournament has been like par. I don't think it's been a massive success so far. I don't think it's been a failure, but I think it's just been fine. There are a few failings of it. I really do think just having the whole tournament in this one small stadium, it is getting full, obviously, but I think it's limiting the atmosphere. It's limiting the potential to go around and show people different parts of Ireland and different cool stadiums that we have. And again, some of those Ireland games could have been in slightly bigger stadiums. They could have got 5,000-6,000.
Would have done a good one in the RDS. Would have been a lovely place to have one of their games.
Quite possibly they could have filled the RDS for this game this evening. Yeah. So that's a problem. And what's going on the field, to be honest, is a problem. It's just a game in development. So there are 12 teams in this competition. That's obviously significantly fewer than there are in the World Cup. And
it's also with professionalism in rugby in the male game, and how developed that is now. So we're at the point where we were calling it out as well, like the coaching is getting even more sophisticated in the men's game, and just the nuances, the tactics, the conditioning, and the way people are thinking about the game, trying to deconstruct some of these modern defenses in terms of their philosophies, where are their key failings, finding their opportunities. This game is a bit behind that, a fair few years.
It is and it isn't. Like the reason that it's so one-sided is that there is a hint of professionalism coming into it. So England, obviously, and New Zealand looking like proper professional outfits, but then there are some outfits that are just totally amateur, and so it is leading to these just like preposterous 121-0 games, a bit like the men's game was back in the 90s. Just the World Cup's just like being really,
even as recent as some of the 07 stuff as well. There was talk of just a huge gap between the tier 1 and tier 2.
It was narrowing even then, but right now it is a problem for sure in every game. Even the game this morning that was supposed to be was billed as like a big game. Who's going to come out on top in this pool and between New Zealand and Canada, and it ended up 48-5. So literally every game in this tournament so far has been one-sided, apart from the 2 Ireland games, who Ireland have struggled.
Ireland are immensely playing some stuttering stuff. We have watched the Irish women over the last few years. They've been a great team in the Six Nations for the last few years. They're missing some key operators in the back, though. They've had two retirements in particular. I'm thinking Niamh Briggs. Is she retired, or is she just...
Niamh Briggs is injured.
She's just injured, and, but there's Cantwell as well.
Was retired.
And they're just 2 lovely proper footballers, and we're lacking for a lot of them with ball in hand. We were watching the Japan game, and Japanese women, granted, were all smaller than us physically. The pack Ireland have are very competent. They look professional when they're in the tight, when they're picking, jamming, and motoring along. That's the one instance when they look really like an organised team and who knows exactly what they're doing and they're in flow. But as soon as it goes outside 10, they're kind of collapse until it gets out to 14. We have our
11.
She's at 11, Alison Miller, yeah. But very much looking like a Simon Gagan, as you were saying, just a star player out in the wing, frozen out of the game until she gets her hands on the ball, and does look electric, but it's not really enough, I don't feel, and they've struggled past two teams.
They're obviously going to. France have been stuffing both of these teams. It's a huge task for them to beat the French. I think the betting man has the semi-finals being New Zealand, Canada. I think it is Canada are going to be the best runners up, and England and France. I wonder who's higher, Canada or USA. Actually, I think you can look that up right now.
We have it there.
No, it's USA. USA will make the thing as best runners up. But that's looking like what the semi-final will be, unless Ireland can pull off some kind of miracle here. But technically, like I the way that they have this coach Tom Tierney, and I'm listening to him talk about the team and what they want to do, and it's all about like basics. Get the basics right, use your strength, and limit the errors. And those are kind of the three main bullet points that this whole team relies on. And it's encouraging to see that be found out in terms of of developing the game.
Yeah, well, it got found out, but at the same time, they did win that Japan game. Like that game against Japan was one where it felt like we thoroughly deserved to lose it. Japan were the side that were, like they always are, had the disadvantage as far as size and strength, and yet they were out scrummaging us in the first half because they were lower, more technical going through. They were disrupting some line-out ball for us, and they were just far more competent with ball in hand going through phase play. Their 10 looked like so much better. This is another thing that's vexing is about some of the coverage we have over in Ireland of this World Cup is our 10, who what is Nora Stapleton. His name slipped my mind. I'm not a huge fan. She got man of the match in that game, and like we couldn't string a phase together because she just stood way deep and she either shifted the ball or kicked the ball, never threatened the line. She's also almost like perpendicular to the defence when she passes the ball as well. She's never taken the gain line on. She's facing the defender or her supporting player who she's thrown to.
This is the thing, is like I don't think it's the fault of skill in Ireland and in just the general shape of the game, the women's game. I don't think it's for want of skill. I just don't think they're as advanced in their structure. And it's really simple things like with Ireland, just between like that link between forwards and backs. Again, they have really great ball players at second row. They actually have 3 really great ball players at second row. But they're not using them in that Brodie Retallick way of just setting up those basic screen plays and just having a neat little transition between forwards and backs, and just being able to have options. Nobody has options ever. It's like it's a really amateurish setup. It is just like when we carry, we have the forward pod here, and then when we go to the backs, it's 10, 12, 13, 15 wing. And that's it. You know, there's no industry to it. There's no subtlety to it. And there's just none of this like clever transitioning, clever little setups and systems that have multiple options. And therefore, like Stapleton doesn't even have the opportunity to make decisions either. Like it's constantly just shift. That's what she gets the ball. It's like it's going to 12. And she doesn't really have runners coming off her. She's not really given me the opportunity to make interesting decisions, to take
bring
it to
anyone
line,
into play,
to bring people in, exactly, and to just be a little more creative. So as the result is that Ireland are stuttering with ball in hand, and they look pretty average with ball in hand. That said, they are a hugely physical team. They've got a really great number 7 in Claire Malloy. They've got Jenny Murphy at centre as a really, really solid player. So they've got every opportunity to put in this big
they've got
shift.
home advantage as well, which is a thing still in terms, even if you're talking in amateurish days, they have a big game mindset too. They are an Ireland team. So I would not be all that surprised to see them, having played such rubbish stuff, like beat a France that are coming in with momentum. I can see how it could happen. When they raise their game and get physical and do get tight, and it's one of those days where they don't make the errors and they do win the collisions, and that could happen because they are big. They are a big team.
It's like they are getting a bit of purchase with those just pick and shift, but they're not nearly playing to their potential, and they're not nearly playing clever enough.
They have a good maul as well. They do have an efficient maul. This is it. Any of their forwards do look legit, and
but there are just technical efficiencies in what they're doing, like little things again, like just when you're doing those carries off 9, having like a forward on your shoulder so you can shift the ball, like a forward can catch it and shift
Or
just
a forward can be the man in the ruck if you decide to carry
exactly.
that. Yeah.
Just switching the point of attack, never done, and they're just not at all creative in how they're moving the ball, and how they're making yards, and as a result, every yard is much tougher than it should be.
Indeed.
So they are making them and winning these games but they're not playing subtly enough, and they're not playing technically well.
And they're not, as we were highlighting. We were highlighting during the semi-final stages in our previews as well of the semi-finals for the Champions Cup the year just gone. Just how many ways of scoring does this team have? Like, I've watched Ireland teams, but in the years gone by, the Ireland women's team score some beautiful tries in teams gone by with backlines gone by. But this team have only scored either pick and jam tries or a maul try. Yeah, those are the two I've seen from them.
Enough either, so they don't make space for their backs by adding different dynamics and different options to what they're doing with the ball. It's always very predictable. It's always very one note, and it's like, we will brute force you or we won't, and that seems to be it.
Yeah. And I feel that will be found out. You're kind of torn again. Like, I want them to do well. But I'm not enjoying looking at them this time around. This iteration, this incarnation of the Ireland women's team. I think there's more to be found from our back play. I think we have more to offer in the back play department. It's just frustrating to see us not utilise the ball, not implement some screens, not just be trying to innovate.
I don't even think it's just like backs v forwards. I think there's general lack of
well, it's not even backs v forwards, but it's like we're so focused on the one space we want to make inroads is the few yards either side of the ruck.
But I don't even think they're making inroads that way. Like, there's no subtlety, there's no dynamism, and there's no creativity in terms of setting up little pods and setting up little moves. Even in the forwards, there's nothing interesting about what they're doing, and they're not shifting the point of attack at all. There's no versatility in their attack, so they're not finding space in clever ways. They're not setting up in clever ways. The defense always knows what they're going to do. So even when they are making inroads, it's with graft, and it's not a backs thing or a forwards thing, because I even think in the forwards, when they have the ball, they're not managing it as well as they could be, and they're making it hard for themselves.
There's definitely we've seen very little of like the likes of a Lions or an Egan, one of these big dynamic ball carrying front rows that they do have. We're not seeing them out in the wing, out in space, off a 9 or off.
There's no movement. There's nothing interesting happening. And you can say it's for want of maybe knocking on the ball. You can say,
which sometimes has happened, or the fact that it seems to take around 9 years for it to get from one side of the pitch to the other when we do decide to shift it. They're very loopy passes.
Well, that's the other thing. Is like the build-up for this World Cup should have been focused on technical proficiency. It's not that tough a skill to be able to catch pass with a bit of
speed and accuracy,
and consistency. Like, you should be able to catch pass with your eyes closed, regardless whether you're a woman or not. And it seems to me to be a fault on the coaching staff's part in terms of how they've prepared for this, in terms of what they're doing, and how conservative they are in what they do with the ball. And yet there's no versatility, there's no kicking, so it's just impossible to make inroads. It's literally force is plan A, and there is no plan A. Speaking in a general sense about the tournament, I think New Zealand and England are actually a good deal ahead of everyone else, and I don't even expect these big results to stop at semi-final time. I think there's going to be one big match between New Zealand and England, and that's it. So the tournament, in a general sense, there's all kinds of different ranges of quality. There's not a lot of even like in the World Cup in men's. You get these interesting fixtures between like Tonga and Romania that end up being close enough, even though both of them are miles behind the All Blacks. We're not even getting that. Everyone seems to be on a different level. So even Wales now are currently playing Hong Kong and are stuffing them, and Australia are stuffing Japan, and these close matches aren't happening. So it's
apart from the Irish providing it by being so damn uncreative that it drags every game down to a low scoring affair, so it is still a one score game come the end. But if we could find a few more ways of scoring tries, that would not have to be the case.
Exactly. And
I fear it could literally be this evening when that's found out, because the French have looked very good.
It's not really for want of organisation or anything else, but just in a general sense, the tournament isn't being as successful as it could be, and it just on the pitch it's not as exciting. It's not drawing eyes in, I don't think, in the way that it could because the games are just so one-sided. And it's very much, speaking as someone in Dublin, it seems to be very much fading into the background of the atmosphere.
It is, certainly people who aren't rugby people wouldn't know that it's on. Although I did meet someone in work who came up to the till talking about one of the games, trying to get tickets for one of the games, and that they were all sold out. That is the thing, they're all sold out.
That's true
the games,
too.
They're like the ones in Dublin, because they went with this small stadium mentality. So I don't know, I like the fact that it's full. I definitely prefer that to the cavernous feel. I would rather that than they have it in the Aviva, which was what they'd be doing if they had it in South Africa or something. Yeah. But there is definitely a happy medium. And just you want to encourage people to get in. You can afford to do more promotion then as well. If you have a bigger stadium, you kind of fill more seats, bums on seats, give family tickets, kind of jobs, any kind of deal.
I certainly think the Ireland women's games were underestimated and should have been moved to the RDS or something.
Yeah, the RDS would have been a lovely place for it. Speaking from many experiences.
There are horses there though at the moment, so that's a complication.
Is that where they are now? Yes, as the Royal Dublin Showgrounds is what the RDS is. I suppose they're sort of entitled.
They have their horse show every August. So
it's the Women's World Cup. It's the rugby.
Yeah,
it is a lovely venue, but we do have many others as well. That you are right in saying that. If in terms of treating this as a dry run for the 2023 campaign as well, we have more stadia.
That's sort of the context through which I'm thinking it, and so far it's pretty unimpressive. Just in terms of the spirit.
I don't think that's in keeping with what would be expected with the 2023 World Cup, though.
No,
the World Cup
know,
comes to Ireland, they're going to be all over Ireland, and it's the island.
There's more hype around Brendan Schaub in Dublin than there is about this Women's World Cup at the moment, and that's a bit disconcerting. The sport community hasn't really got on board with it. Again, there's more hype about the GA that's going on every week.
Yeah. Now, and how much of that
totally.
can be attributed to a very ugly brand of rugby being played by the Ireland women as well.
I think it's in general.
Some people who flick on the games now, who'll try and flick on that game and try and watch it. And I wouldn't blame a non-rugby person for not enjoying that Japan game at the weekend.
Yeah,
if they were hungover in any state and found it on the TV and stuck it on for 10 minutes, they'd just be immensely frustrated and probably turn it off because it was clumsy error fest with a team that you feel must be better at doing these basics than they're demonstrating on the pitch. They must be better at it because Japan were better at it, and there are other teams. And there are teams in this tournament that can move the ball.
From a general sense, I'm talking about it is good that that's being found out. That the frailties that we're talking about from Ireland, it's not going to work. This game is going to move beyond amateur, and it's going to move into something that's coming close to professionalism. And when it does, you're basic.
You're either with it or you're not.
You're limiting errors and your basics and your strength aren't going to be enough. It's going to be about dynamism, it's going to be about creativity, it's going to be about finding space and doing it well with good systems and inviting your players to play as well.
But there's still that culture. This is it. We're still the Leinster half of the country in terms of that way of thinking. There are a hell of a lot of the Munster people who are convinced that no, Stapleton kicked all her kicks, her 3-pointers, therefore she's player of the match or whatever you call it. It's just, we kicked our 3-pointers, we dominated up front by the end. It was a tough old affair, but we got there in the end. Tough as old boots on the girls, on the Colleens. But I don't. There's a lot of people who prefer playing rugby played that way, the attritional way, the in the tight. We're just not one of them. And I definitely think
we don't think it's
the future.
It's not the way. It's limiting your. You should have it in your arsenal. But what we're talking about, it's not necessarily pretty versus ugly. It's versatility versus limited.
That's it. Well, sure. Look, Sarries was the extreme example this year of ones that are still a bullying team that who want to dominate you, get in your face, but blitz you in the tight, but they also want to get offloads away. They also want to link up very quickly and transition to the back so they can shift and just find tries.
Exactly, just loads of different ways of finding tries.
Indeed, and loads of different ways of scoring, and it's a problem. And we've there have been Ireland teams throughout the years who have found it more difficult to vary it up than others. There have been some that. I remember the one a few years ago, the men who could only score kicking tries when we initially transitioned to the Henshaw and Payne in the centres, and it was just a team full of fullbacks, 2 classy halfbacks, kick it up in the air and we'll chase it all day long. And every try looked kind of similar for a season. Yeah. And it's it's good, but then when you go behind, it's good when you dominate, when it all goes to plan and you go 3 points, then 6 points, then 13 points or something. And you build a lead that way, and then you're in the lead and you're physically dominant and you're holding the ball a bit long and you're comfortable. That's all fine, but it gets found out very, very quickly when there's a systems error and you're 14-0 down, and now it's only 20 minutes in, there's a lot of game time left, but you're 14 points down now. And the teams like that fade under that, because 14 points is an astronomical figure if you're viewing it as every phase we're going to just work, get into kicking range, win a penalty, kick 3 points, and eat up 10 minutes of the clock for 3 points, and be satisfied with that as a taking. That's where it's flawed, and I think we will see it in years to come with the women are very capable of moving the ball. I've seen some lovely running from the women out wide as well. Like, they need to be getting these players into the game and manipulating the space a bit more.
Yeah, it's at that coaching level. It's Tom Tierney at the moment who I'm blaming most of the failings on from an Ireland perspective. Is just those little, like, it's not a skills thing to just orchestrate like a little transition, a little screenplay with Stapleton in behind, Fitzpatrick in the centre, or Riley in the centre, taking it up and shifting it in behind. It's a very simple thing. That said, in a general sense, I agree with you, and the versatility is the key, because that means you can't be figured out. So if someone figures out how to stop your maul, or someone puts you in this scenario or this scenario or this scenario, you have plays to get out of it. And that's the idea behind, like, giving players the ability to play, giving players the ability to think, just have them understanding the concepts of, we find the space and we figure it out.
Rather than
what we loved about the Chiefs, that
indeed,
that problem solving mentality that they have.
Like, initially it all sounds kind of good, and we've gone through many years of this, when the PR from the stuff you get from in the interviews from the players is all stuff about just limit the errors, which is a very Northern Hemisphere way of talking about rugby. Like, in hindsight, a Kiwi captain who lost will probably say, we made some mistakes, but they won't be saying, like, limit the errors too much. They'll be saying, like, no, we still need to try things, we just didn't read it right, rather than just, if you made that error, you're out. This is like, I remember, who was the winger who was talking about it? I think it was like Christian Wade or someone who was discussing the England, like, his experience of watching an All Black team play, and just watching the winger from the winger's perspective, and see some crazy nonsense that he tried to step on the outside, got bundled into touch, and it was like, and he was just thinking, going, like, you do that in an England jersey, you might never play in the England jersey again. You'll get absolutely savaged in the dressing room and being told, don't do that ever again, blah blah blah. Whereas New Zealand are just like, unlucky, try again, next play, find space again. It's very much,
it's about thinking, it's about trying things, it's about experimenting and finding the space.
And I also feel just a culture that's going, like, limit the errors is also going, limit the risks, and therefore limit the chances. And that's always going to be the way. And then it means that the tries that end up being scored are the ones that are low percentage, going back into the numbers, and it means every
that
time
anybody playing Ireland
knows exactly
this iteration
what's coming.
of Ireland is like, okay, we can out technically scrummage them. We have to disrupt them at line out.
Do you know what? Warren ball would work against this Ireland team.
Warren ball would work against this Ireland team, very much so.
It would easily stop everything. Just a load of chop tackles on our Sophie Spences in the tight, and suddenly we're toothless. And I fear that that's going to happen.
So that's the thing. It's like Ireland's ace in the hole. Their only ace in the hole. Their only X factor. Well, they've two, I suppose. Claire Malloy is one, just as a penalty generator when they don't have the ball. She's good, Jack. She's actually a genuine number 7. So if she has one of those days where she just gets the feel for it, and gets penalty after penalty, that can be a path to victory for Ireland. And then the other one is Alison Miller. If she does come in off her wing and gets a bit of space,
or off chaos ball or something, France kick to her. I don't think they will, though.
No.
I don't know.
She's gotten terrible service, and every time she touches the ball, she looks like Damien McKenzie. She's just this moment of like, there's real dynamism here.
Indeed, she can go off the left, she can go off the right. She is, but you're right. She has got terrible service at the same time. She's always working in with the back against the wall, trying to dig us. Most of her cameos are just kind of digging us out of trouble rather than getting us into action. We're hoping to see a bit more, though. Hoping to see that big, because in keeping with this team, we do know to come to expect, like, you're looking at them being written off, looking at them playing really poorly, and those are the games when the media is on, step up and do perform. So definitely, though, I do see their limitations, see them lacking a little bit of cohesion in the backline and just a lot of clarity in terms of what they're doing. If you want me to call it,
I mean, there is obviously that X factor of Ireland being just rising to the occasion. But generally speaking, the principle since we've started this podcast on which I call teams is I just tend to back the better team to do the job. And obviously, this is a bit more amateur still, so there are those little X factors and different factors. We're silhouetted here again, but excuse me, but in a general sense, I think France have they're a good team, a really good team, and they have a really easy job here. They know exactly what's coming for them.
If they're thinking on that level, though, but there's a lot of laissez-faire coaching in France as well. If they turn up trying to play jouer and not particularly pointed jouer.
I think because this is such a big game, this has always been the big game for them in our group. We were going into the World Cup, we were favourites to get out of the group.
Yeah.
So they've obviously impressed more. It's a really basic job. There's only 3 or 4 things that they have to focus on. The chop tackles, shutting down the line out maul,
Jackals as well occasionally I'd be focusing on.
But then beyond that, if they have any amount of possession, they're much more likely to score than Ireland are.
Yes.
So I think if I had to call it, I would call it for France.
Mm.
But obviously there are all these kinds of random things that can happen.
Indeed, and we will be cheering for Ireland, no doubt.
100%,
no doubt. Doubtless in a frustrated manner though. It'll be a long old 80 minutes. But yeah, no, we were hopeful that it'll go on. I do definitely think you were right though in what you said earlier. It's England and it's New Zealand, and that's probably going to be the final. I'd be shocked to see anything other than that happen. And those two teams do look good. Yeah, they actually look
proper professionals.
Yeah,
and a bit much more versatility. Portia Woodman, by the way, because we've been very Irish centric in the way we've looked at this so far. You have to give a shout out to Portia Woodman finding 8 tries in a match.
Indeed, it's like regardless of the opposition, you play the opposition that you're presented with. That's some good stuff. That's a good return for any player on a pitch.
She is the best in the world, Portia. So fair play to her. And in general, that's sort of where we are. Obviously, when you'll be watching this Ireland-France game will be over. Because we're about to go watch it after this. But in general, those are our thoughts on Ireland. And I can't imagine, even if Ireland put out this big performance, I can't imagine that our analysis is going to be that far off the truth.
Yeah, indeed.
And if they are out, you can take that as our what went wrong.
Indeed. So it's you can use it to fit. But we definitely we expect to see more of England and more of New Zealand. And our main takeaway though is that I think you illustrated there earlier, just the gulf in class between every team seems to be. It's just no one is on the same level as anyone else.
So there aren't any good games happening. That's a shame.
Which is unfortunate.
Apart from, to be fair, Ireland-Australia was a good game, and again, Australia were much more proficient at moving the ball. There was
that was the first game, wasn't it? That was the first game of the tournament.
No, it was the evening of the first day.
Which was the first? But I thought did the hosts not open?
Maybe they could have, but scheduling just didn't work out because it was prime. They wanted to put them at prime time for the Irish viewers.
Okay, yeah, maybe that's okay.
So it was
unusual.
Like the 4th game,
right? But it was good on day one to have a competitive fixture.
Yeah.
We haven't seen
and there was like it was a good
like
clash
again.
Of styles too. Ireland showed good balls in that game to get back into
They did, showed grit, and Australia did show a little bit of flappability in those moments when they probably should have won.
But they found a really nice try. That first try was really great with the quick tap.
Oh yes,
pass over the top and
there were also crisp passers and crisp steppers on that team.
And a note on Irish commentary. I was relieved to find out that Ryle Nugent's commentary wasn't the one that was going to the world. When I watched highlights on YouTube, that there was actually this Sky Sports guy. One of them was doing it, not Miles Harrison. One of the sort of fringe Sky Sports guys who usually does the top couture.
Okay, I think I know.
He was commentating on the game.
And it was a bit more.
That was going wow. But the Irish guys are just like ludicrous.
Terrible.
Like there was just a great try scored by Australia off like a quick tap that they went across the pitch. Wonderful step and a score, and it was just a gorgeous try. And if that try is going to be scored against the All Blacks, you're going to hear Justin Marshall giving them their due, going, "Oh, what a try! Oh, these guys are here to play." And it was just like this bitching, nonsense.
There's no colour. There's no colour commentary coming from the commentary that we get in Ireland at all. It's really painful. The colour commentator is there to basically come in going, that was a bad mistake by Ireland or brilliant work by ex-player from Ireland.
Always viewed through the Irish
Ireland,
lens.
though.
So it's like this was a great try.
None of them are studying the actual rugby and analysing it. That's what's so vexing about it.
This was a great try that was scored by Australia. It was just like, oh, what went wrong there? Oh, they fell asleep. Oh, clearly shouldn't miss that tackle. Oh, and it's just like,
but it lingers as well. It'll be the next play, and it like a penalty arises, like, and this is all the result of Ireland just falling asleep and letting the back. It'll be little comments like that throughout, and you're just going, guys, watch the rugby that's happening. You're talking brown. There's been a lot of that. The coverage has had a lot of former professionals from the women's game.
And Ryle Nugent. Ryle Nugent's really bugging me.
But he's been always on that bandwagon. He's the traditional Irish. Come on, Ireland! Oh no! If it's anything goes wrong. It's getting increasingly annoying now that we have more and more access to a Justin Marshall, Grant Nisbet kind of commentary team. It's just class. We have to watch suffer through our own version of it,
and it comes off as like close-minded, insular, parochial. like every negative stereotype you'd have about island mentality is exactly what it comes off as. Like, no presence of mind, no consideration of any other perspective.
Yeah, I'm not mad about the in-studio stuff as well. It's very, very surface level vacuous and very often wrong.
And also just like limit the errors.
That's what they were saying. I think they're just a mouthpiece for the Tom Tierney principle, and it's just that's not what we're seeing in these games, girls. Like, and it's like giving man of the match that our people chose the man of the match, I'm sure, and it was Nora Stapleton, and she, from our estimations, just had a dreadful game where she didn't control things, didn't kick the ball enough, didn't threaten.
I do think she's been handed a raw deal by the system, but the system that's in place.
There's still I still see just technical inefficiencies. One chief among which was an error that was pointed out by a video that I was watching during the Lions tour that Tyg Furlong and Joe Marler were guilty of in that pod system, where instead, like, New Zealand are so effective of it, taking it to the line and either shifting it outside or shifting it or pulling it back, but the forwards themselves are square when they shift the ball.
With the defense,
whereas Tyg in the early games, and Joe Marler was highlighted in some of the early games against like the Blues and stuff, they were trying to implement that system, but at the point of release, Tyg's over here, he's facing where he's going to be released, and so he's already drifting, so the defence are already drifting. I think with Stapleton and with all of that backline, there's too much of that. They get the ball, they shape the pass, they kind of keep running sideways, so their tracking run, instead of being a line, is kind of a lifting curl to the left, and then they release the ball,
and just eating up the space for Ali Miller, who
eventually gets the ball on the touchline, has to step in, does so effectively, robustly, and gets through a little bit of contact and goes down, but that's the only service she's getting for the entire game, until she gets annoyed at that and comes in off her wing and scores a try.
So in general, pretty painful.
Yes. we got worked up. We had time to think about all of these things while we were watching some squandered chances. But
more to the point, just again, we have touched on Ireland before, but more to the point is like we do have a bone to pick with the way commentary is done in this country, and hopefully those of us who are subscribed from New Zealand haven't had the displeasure of listening to us.
I'm sure you've on occasion you definitely have. I know there have been certain games that we've had exclusive rights for, and then therefore, like, when you watch them on YouTube, you just get a load of comments down below going like, what is going on with these Irish boys, and we have nothing to say other than you're right. Other than there are a lot of Irish people who complain about the English parochialism in either BBC coverage or Sky coverage.
England aren't nearly as bad. As far as I can tell, Ireland and Australia are the worst.
Yes,
but even the Australians
though, like, if you have Sean Maloney in there, that's good colour commentary. He will get excited about a try, even if it's one scored against the Brumbies or against anyone, or against the Wallabies or anyone. He will say, "Oh God, what a try!" You know, and that's what you need. Whereas there's so little of that in the like always with the Irish one, it's a groan or a grumble or something, or very rarely, unless it's Ireland scoring the winning try, do they get that excitement. If you don't
have Sean Maloney in there, the Aussies can be a bit like that. Phil Kearns can be just
Phil Kearns coming in with it. Although it was amusing towards the tail end of the Super Rugby, because anytime you'd have like the Rebels in the lead by 10 points with 10 minutes to go, and it's just, instead of being excited, they're going like, oh gee, though, we know we've done this the last 4 games, so we've lost all 4. And sure enough, try time, and then they're like, oh no. But they are amusing as well. But it's good to see that we're not alone in that. But it's something I really want to see move forward, and I would hope that through things like podcasting, like that, I've seen a lot of other content. There are some other people doing podcasts on rugby that are some good quality stuff, and there's just, you can get into the nitty gritty, you can break stuff down in a more neutral way, in a more like just analytical way, technical day. And I appreciate that BT are sort of trying to do that. I'm not fans of what BT have done in terms of coming in here, the business model, but some of having some former players or some current players in to explain little systems and stuff. There is still a novelty aspect to it, and it's not very in depth. It's kind of superficial and surface level when they're just running loop plays in the studio with Austin Healy making some jokes. And you're just like, all right then, this isn't that insightful.
We all know what a loop play is.
And it's like, and I can do it still, and the best utility back in the world. But yeah, no, just to be able to talk about the game itself, that's what I appreciate. Like, appreciating Justin Marshall. I've seen a few Kiwis give out about Justin Marshall, but they're the few, not the many.
Yeah, they're wrong,
and they're wrong because he is
really good. Nisbet and Marshall, but they're bending over backwards to tap into the other perspective and to just divorce yourselves from your patriotism and watch the rugby. And then when you do that, you start to just look at like interesting creative things, and we always appreciate it when Ireland in recent years have always put up a fight against the All Blacks, and for some reason the All Blacks are always surprised.
Yeah, I know. Don't know what that's about.
We always put up a fight, and there's always just this appreciation of what Ireland were doing, like that wonderful Rory Best try in Dublin when we went 19-0 up. That involved like really intricate little.
It started off with him and Rory Best at the beginning, coming around the back,
doing like a loopy link play,
and then an offload,
really
and then another offload, and Murray was well in behind.
Yeah, and they were just like, "Oh, look at this!" And then Justin Marsden saying after he scored, "That's one of the most beautiful tries you're going to see all year," and they're just an appreciation for the technical aspects of what's being done.
Indeed. And rather than begrudgery. I'm so sick of begrudgery from commentary, especially after what was a beautiful play, because it seeps in.
It doesn't belong in commentary.
I've been in pubs. I watch it with members of the family who are slightly older, and it comes in as well. And we're always the ones going like, but beautiful score. It happened during the women's as well. I was watching the Women's World Cup with it, the Japan game with the grandparents and all this, and there was a lot of grumbling and going like, we're playing terribly, and going like, but Japan, to be fair, look pretty good when they have the ball. Exactly. No? So they look pretty tasty. They can play the game.
You do have to check yourself when you're getting into that mode of thinking about the game, and I definitely think we're better now in recent years for just watching a game. Like it takes some doing, but like I really do enjoy just watching sport and watching it unfold. When I was younger, I used to always, like, if I caught like a soccer game on the telly and it was between like, I don't know, some MLS team like New York and California, I don't know what the teams are. LA Galaxy.
LA Galaxy is a team. Yeah.
And they would be playing each other, and I'd have to pick a side to watch. I'd be like, okay, go on, LA Galaxy, and then they'd start playing. And I'm like, yeah, but now like I'm much better at just like appreciating
as a neutral.
That's like what's great, like the Super Rugby final. As much as we liked the Chiefs and what we were doing, I watched that Crusaders Chiefs game and just appreciated what was going on.
That was a beautiful game.
And it was just like wonderful dynamics of the Chiefs being versatile and creative in attack and doing what we said they were going to do, which is this problem solving and this creative stuff, and the Crusaders shutting it down, and the Crusaders not doing this straight blitz but like relying on their players to make individual decisions.
This was it. That was what the matchup was, because the Chiefs, as we had highlighted before, are thinking on that level, and they have like 3 player makers in that very often in that back line who are all trying to think and find the space and manipulate around the defence, and then they were coming across what was a defensive system that was doing well, but also just heads up play in defence.
Crotty
that was really
and Goodhue in particular were just making read after read after read, and there's
Reed making reads as well.
Reed making reads as well.
He often
more so
is.
in the final. He has such a game in the final, but like that whole game, as much as we liked the Chiefs and we wanted to appreciate what they're doing, like I didn't find myself rooting for the Chiefs. So I did a little bit when they were playing a bit of rugby, but more so I was just appreciating this.
Well, I did. I certainly did a little bit after the disallowed try. I felt should have stood. Yes. And I still feel should have stood. The Nanai Williams try.
Yes.
I still feel he caught that, and then he was grounded with his belly.
Tucked under his arm. It was a little weird one because it came off his chest, but it was still tucked into his arm. So
and
it
his
gave
chest
the illusion
was
from the behind angle that he dropped it, but it was still actually tucked in his arm.
Yeah. So I thought that was an error. And then there was one shortly before half time that was another bad decision while the Chiefs were attacking. I felt there was a penalty that went one way. I can't quite remember it now, but it was one that I remember feeling vexed. So at the beginning of the second half, because after watching the first half, I was just going, oh no, the Chiefs, because we would big the Chiefs up, and just going, it's just not happening. It's one of those kind of feelings, and that's the other thing that happens when you start viewing it as a neutral instead of viewing it with those lenses on, is you notice the trends, and you notice how impactful the first 20 minutes and the little trends that start occurring in the first 20 minutes, how telling they are in the end, because they often reoccur for the key try. It's often the same kind of little thing that it's discovered. There's a little hint at some of
the Sexton Farrell loop that ended up being the break for was it Vunipola? Through the gap.
Was it Vunipola?
Jamie George.
No, Jamie George went through that gap.
That was that killer try.
Indeed, and it was set up early on with some of the things they were probing with, but it only came to fruition later on. And there's a lot more to be found in that. And then in that particular game in the Chiefs, it was just watching that whole first half, and then the lovely the transition for the counter-attacking try by the Crusaders was brilliantly done. That was the main question mark we had over the Crusaders. They answered in emphatic style, was just, are they going to find the tries? And what we didn't cater for was Crotty. Crotty came back in and just made a huge difference to their ability to just transition very quickly from defence into attack, or just seize an opportunity.
He's like a more complete version of Gordon Darcy. He's like and Gordon Darcy with a boot as well. But like that great Gordon Darcy, if you're Irish and you remember him from 2004 when he won Player of the Six Nations.
Yeah, he was quick and he was like stocky, and he would always have the ball in two hands, and he was quick off either foot. but kind of compact as well. He had he does have a similar style of rugby of running, and he made one break in the final that was just exactly like that, where he shaped to kick, just held it a little longer, and just the two hands thing, that reverse drift from the Lions just proved ridiculous by the end. Like the dam did open early on, and I enjoyed the fact that the first try came off a turnover, which was a bit of sloppy
turnover.
Lions
I tell you what it was Kieran
Reid dumping Yankees on his arse, and then the guy who came on to latch onto the ruck kicked the ball out, and then there was a bit of crazy pinball, and then eventually just
I think someone, I can't remember who it was
away.
No, but somebody was responsible for, I think it might have been Goodhue, for like scooping the ball up and launching it to Tamani Valley.
Yeah, someone got there. Yeah, no, that was good. But initially, what broke it free from the ruck was Kieran Reid gave it a tackle, and Yankees in his panic tried to throw it back, and it just, like, as he was pushing it back, it landed on an oncoming foot of one of his players trying to join
somebody, I can't remember who, did scoop it up and into the path.
Yeah, but it was illustrating the difference. There were too many sloppy little tendencies in Lions
like
play.
We're talking about with the Ireland women, just technical inefficiencies.
And they're getting away with them, and we've seen that the side is, that's another thing to be discussed, is that the Rugby Championship is starting this weekend. Teams have been named, and South Africa have once again gone for Cronje and Yankees, which we believe
we'll get into
mistake. But just in the context of this game, it proved as well. People like Mapu were found out a little as well. Just there were too many operators. Like, they have some great players still doing great things, and where they caused problems was, well, apart from Faf de Klerk, but in the tight they had some great players. Moster actually had a good game as well.
Jaco Creel has been carrying that pack in terms of dynamism around the park in a big way. Himself and Malcolm Marks doing great work.
Malcolm Marks is like a world class operator as well. We've highlighted as much before, but just in the Lions as well just seem to be a half and half. They have some great players like that, but also some players who are just a little bit.
Some players who are coasting in that team, and that you see that at centre, and you see that. Again, with the wingers, I'm not particularly enamored. I like Combrink. I can't believe Scussan got in ahead of Combrink, but we will get to that. But like, in a general sense, that Chiefs Crusaders game was one of in a general sense was like the best attack. It felt like the true final to me.
It did.
I know that the Crusaders beat them by slightly more than they beat the Lions, but they had the Lions had to come to Christchurch. I think it would have been
a shellacking. Yeah.
So the Chiefs did have to come to Christchurch into the Lions' den, and
the Crusaders did.
The Chiefs had to come into the Crusaders.
Oh, the Crusaders, sorry.
And they stuck true to themselves, and I was impressed. I really was, and I was delighted when they got that try. They stuck true to themselves. They played with versatility. They played with attack. They had Cruden and McKenzie really thinking about the game. And when they found that try that was disallowed, it was a lovely pass from Cruden to Lowe, and a lovely kick from Lowe, and it was just like constantly trying new things. And every time they got shut down, they tried something else. Yeah. And the Crusaders were always just wise to it. And it was really an example of elite defending, and something that we haven't seen that much from defence as much, which we have seen from attacks, is versatility.
Yes,
you can have the shooter system, you can have the blitz system, you can have,
but you don't need to have just one system.
Exactly,
which is
one of the interchange.
And
they figured out pretty early on that the best way to cope with the Chiefs is to really rely and lean on the quality of Crotty and Goodhue to make reads, to make calls,
and a few times it was very much that they nailed their man a few times.
And scrambling tackles as well. Like, they're just like McKenzie just not able to get away because Goodhue has him, and like just those little moments of great defending that were happening constantly. Yeah, and as you say, they did find the tries. They found the great try in the first half of counter attack. And then
the key try being an unfortunate James Lowe error. It
did come from a lot of good pressure.
It was good pressure, and it was just a slight technical inefficiency in terms of how he went to kick that ball. He should maybe a bit of greedy, but there's no way he should be leaving it out that wide. It's kind of because that's going to be more prone to be charged down.
Coming, like, you've seen goalkeepers in soccer make the
same error.
They just don't realise the dude is behind him.
He's still out of his peripheral vision, I guess. I suppose.
It was a bit of a random kind of chaos moment, but it was born of pressure.
Yes, it was.
It's a bit like people talk about red cards just to pivot to the final. Yeah, exactly. And I've heard so many Lions players like, "Oh, if we didn't get the red card, blah blah blah." First of all, I don't think that's true. I think the game took a certain shape and it was going to keep that shape. I definitely think it hurt them a little bit, but I don't think they were going to come back and win, even with 15 on 15. It did change the dynamic of the game. But also to refer to it like that, like this little chaos incident that's just divorced from everything else, and if it didn't happen, this would have happened, is a wrong way of thinking about it. Like, it's born of the circumstance.
Yes.
The circumstance being that the Crusaders are up on you, they're pounding you, they're pummeling you, and they're forcing you into
earlier.
Into
even if you break down, because we did just rewatch that whole sequence of events before the red card, it was a Lions line out in their own half of around the 10-meter line, and they were setting up to try and maul it. But Whitelock got up and disrupted at the tail, so they couldn't set the maul up properly. So it ended up being sacked and scrappy, and then it had to go back to the 10. And Yankees was set deep, so he just kicked it up in the air, and it was a little too shallow as a kick. And the 7 was chasing it, even though he was probably wanted to be carrying was probably the plan. And now he's up, and he completely got it wrong. It was exacerbated by the fact that the fall was bad, but it was a bad moment.
What the Crusaders were doing to disrupt what the Lions were doing, and that's why it happened. So to talk about it like this isolated incident from the game, the red card incident changed the game. The red card incident was a part of the game. It's a bit like saying, if this try didn't happen, we would win.
But at the same time, even with the red card, they had dividends in the second half, and that was, I think, somewhat due to the fatigue, because we saw Whitelock fall off a tackle for the second of those tries, and it was something we discussed on our own, even though we didn't get a chance to do the podcast, because had we had a chance to do a preview, one of our more salient points was talking about how that looked like the Hurricanes faded in their semi-final. It's been a long season. They're going to South Africa. It's at altitude, and the Lions are hugely used to that. And Crusaders have a very attritional game plan. They're very forward oriented, as we've known, and they're very similar to how Northern Hemisphere sides play the game. And like Ireland, we've seen do it, and we've also seen inconsistency in them, in an inability to string results together.
Physically dominant performance.
Indeed, namely, like a Six Nations will win 4 of the 5, and the 5th one will be a very flat dud of a performance where we're not on the physical level. It's one of the
reasons why you need to be more technically efficient, both with the way you're moving your body and the versatility of your ability to score tries. And to be fair to the Crusaders, they did improve in both of those departments. They started.
I feel like Crotty was the missing link in it, because without him, they were looking just a little bit head scratchy, a little bit ponderous with the ball.
12 from 15, and Havili got a bad rap in my book, because I saw a lot of him at 12 and was like, this is an ugly player. He's a very solid fullback, but at 12 just limited, and Crotty came in and was a missing dynamic, but they just looked a bit like they looked earlier in the season.
More assured. And Daragh had a superb season, and fair play to him as well from fullback, because there's a lot of competition there. There's a lot of exciting new talent there. It was good to see an elder statesman put in that elder statesman role, in that he's moved on as a player to embody that role. He is very senior in how he plays. He's very assured from the rear.
He's become freakishly good at covering the ground. Like Ireland would struggle with him if the All Blacks were to play Ireland next week. Because we would have to have Daragh in the team, even more so than Mackenzie, because he's such a counter to what Sexton does. And I think it even happened for the Lions a couple of times. Like, they couldn't figure Daragh out. Daragh is really tough to kick a ball over his head these days, and that's what the Highlanders were doing all day long, trying to kick it over him, trying to kick it past him. And even the Chiefs at times, Damien Mackenzie was trying it, but every time it went to Dagh's wing, he was aware and awake to it, and really spatially aware, and he just knows how to cover the ground and then return with interest. He's got a bomb.
His kicking has been exemplary. That's probably a dimension he's not added to his game. He always had a long boot, but he's getting very accurate with it now, and knows when to use it.
Of football, which is interesting, because he's moved to the wing. He's playing more like a traditional fullback in terms of his fielding, but again, you can cover that distance from the wing and do that role.
And the number on the back of your jersey doesn't preclude you from being in the centre in the fullback role for any given play.
Exactly.
Like they did a lot of that against the Lions, even when they had when the name slipped me now, Rico Ioane on one wing, and we were talking about bit of a weakness there, and they just kept hiding him. Kept shifting that responsibility, having him away from the ball. But in terms of the final, I feel like that red card, even despite it, the Lions managed to get into the game. When they brought Faf on and they upped the pace in the second half, Crusaders did struggle to adjust and live with it for a while, and they didn't score after that onslaught. They just held on to the scores they'd had early on. It was important that they did. I felt a recognition in the Crusaders that it was important that they started well, scored early, and scored heavily. And that would have been one of our... And
the Lions just have a habit of letting that happen, and they really do lean on the altitude issue. They really do lean on the opposition fading, because they're not used to altitude. And it's one of those human factors just of the venue that you're in. And again, it's another reason.
It's a more salient point than home advantage. It certainly is. Altitude
certainly,
has a factor, and it's actually...
Well, it affects the body. And it's especially when you're so not used to it, when you've
Mm-hmm.
been living in winter in New Zealand for so long. And I know it's winter in South Africa technically, but you're coming to 20 degrees at altitude from freezing temperatures in New Zealand.
It's going to affect your performance.
It
How can it not?
affect your
And that's
body.
part of the contributing thing of like, how was it fair? And that's why it's probably best the Crusaders won it for the sake of the tournament, because it would have been tarnished as a result, or as a tournament, had the Lions become Super Rugby champions without ever having to travel to New Zealand
and also just in the way that the games were taking shape, they were leaning on the other team fading in altitude. They were leaning.
As the
on
Hurricanes
human
found similar tries to what the Crusaders did, the Hurricanes found them as well in the first half. They
and then just faded
out as well.
And again, like if the Lions had to go to Wellington, I think they could have struggled. And again, had they had to go to Christchurch, I think they definitely
Christchurch in the rain. I don't think there's a hope. I don't see any winning conditions.
It's almost unfair
for
to criticize the Lions for just using the advantages that they have and just beating the teams in front of them, which is all they did all year. But it's certainly a failure of the system, and certainly in a general sense, in terms of how teams prove themselves, I think the Chiefs proved themselves a better team than the Lions, and I think they are deservedly. I think I'm sticking to my guns in calling that match the true final.
Yeah,
the Chiefs Crusaders, because it was the best attack versus.
Well, we'll find out. Maybe it'll be the Rugby Championship when they'll fail to recognise now, because just based on what we were hinting at it before, the selection that South Africa have made for the first game leads me to believe that they haven't learned that the Lions, particularly at 9 and 10. Are not the answer. I feel I'm going to stick to my guns on that one and say that Yankees is not the answer. And you were saying as much as well. You want to see Kerwin Bosch given a go.
I pretty much came to that conclusion.
Yeah, they do. They still have he may be able to armchair ride for this game because he does have Surfington and Creel, which is the right option in the centres. But Cronje is also a passenger. He's not. He doesn't assert himself in a game. I'd much rather see a Reinach or a Faf
the
in there.
degree to which the game changed when Faf de Klerk came on was astronomical. He added something.
He took it to the line. He was very quick. He was effectively sprinting for the first 10 minutes that he was on the pitch.
He actually gassed himself out because he was just sprinting from breakdown to breakdown to breakdown to breakdown. But he was he added such a dynamic, and he just terrified that Crusaders defence.
As they were starting to fade a little, even against the 14.
It was this new, fresh... and Faf has his limits. I wouldn't start.
He's not a good kicker of a ball.
Yeah, and he doesn't control a game, and he can be a chaos element. But certainly he's a really skilled.
He's a better option than Huhard, who they've put on the bench now.
Well, anyway, I had my team picked, my Bok team picked in advance of this weekend. I had a team laid out that I wanted to see because I'm just very interested in what this coaching ticket are doing right now. I say as a silhouette.
You're not quite a silhouette. You're exaggerating.
But.
Yeah, it's your Bok team though.
But I had this Bok team picked. Some of them are obviously the same. Beast and Tawira, Malcolm Marks. At tight head, I wasn't really sure what options they had. They've gone for Connie Westhuizen, who I never rated, but they don't have that much. Like Trevor Nyakanya on the bench, he's always been a horrible scrummager and not that dynamic. And he's technically inefficient at scrum time. So I was hoping for maybe Malherbe. He seems to be missing. So again, it's a weakness for the Boks no matter who you pick, that tight head jersey. In the second row, again, I much prefer Peter Steff on the starting
You've said
team.
as much before,
Again, that's
to be honest now, I think you're a little harsh on Muster because I think he's just a different option that does offer a lot as well. He offers
Muster or Mustard?
Mustard. Probably Mustard. I don't know, but he is a very good player as well. He's more rangy. He does have a longer stride. He's good dynamic. He's a very, very, very good at line out operator though. He's very good at his disrupt. He kind of performs more of the Peter O'Mahony line out role though. He's quick to fire up. You can fire him up very quickly to get in front of and he reads it quite well to get in front of other. For a young second row as well. He still has a lot of learning.
He's good. I'm not going to deny he's good. I just think Peter Steff is better. I think he links better. He's a really great link man between forwards and backs. He's got really good presence.
Well, Peter Steff is on the bench, and I do like him running against tired bodies because Steff, he is a very physical player.
Mustard is just as physical. Peter Steff is more technical. I would much rather have Peter Steff on the pitch for 60 minutes, doing technically proficient things, being really solid at the line out, making those one-handed takes, just making those linking offloads, getting in behind the Argentinian defence. Would much prefer to see Peter Steff in there, and I've been sticking to my guns on that.
That's fair enough. Yeah,
Mustard's good. I think he's better.
Yeah, I wouldn't rank Mustard as a weakness though. This is just in terms of your preference, and they still have depth there.
I mean, the two flankers
back row is good enough. This is it. It's a team that can win because of a lot of the quality that is present in this pack. And and those centres as well. I think those centres are dead right in quality as well. They can shut down a lot
those
all
were
game
the two
long.
big calls. Like I did want to see Serpentine and Creel at centre. I think it's really great. Good combination. They're comfortable together, and they're really good at. Serpentine is wonderful at leading the line in defence, and just he can switch on a dime from distributor to ball carrier to anything from centre. And Creel is a good man to link with him. He complements him nicely. The back row again, those two, Sia Khaleesi and Jaco Creel, are literally two of the informed flankers in the world right now. They're playing awesome stuff, jaw-dropping stuff, and they didn't have many options at 8. So I suppose giving a token Cheetah's selection is as good an option as any.
A Cheetah's cap.
Yeah. Where the real weakness is, as you've pointed out, is Cronje and Yankees,
and those wingers. We have Raymond Rue, and who's it?
Courtnall
Scossan's on the other one. Yeah, like Scossan gets his positioning wrong off the ball. His defending is not elite level.
Dag cut through him.
Yeah, Daragh made him look silly in that game. Yeah. How can you be looking at those Lions performances and thinking that that's the flaw? Not only is that's flawless rugby or close to it, or that it's close to the level, like you're not taking into account the fact that when they still have their energy, the New Zealand teams blitzed through us, and it was only when they gassed that we got into the game. You're not looking at it in that way. You're just looking at it, we were also close.
Like Faf de Klerk changed that game.
Yeah,
he changed that game when he came on. I know it was
Cronje looks to me like we're gonna parallel with Ireland all day long, but Tomás O'Leary, when that started happening and Stringer disappeared, it was just like a random Tomás O'Leary out of nowhere appears in a 9 jersey, and now Stringer's career is done. And we're just looking at him going like, well, all right, what's the thinking here? He's a mediocre passer. He's a mediocre kicker. Doesn't run particularly well with the ball. What are we doing with him?
Pretty passive player.
He's very passive. He doesn't. But this is it. This is my issue. Is like we've discussed the principle of a team having an ethos and an ethic, and no more so should that be prevalent in your 9 and your 10, your petit général if you're French, or whatever in your 9, but you're also your 10 making key decisions. These are key decision makers, but also, like, they need to be reflective of the dynamic of the team. And when I look at Cronje being he's very offload. He just shifts the ball a lot of the time. Doesn't take that decision making role on. And then when Yankees is the one doing that, I just see frailty. I see a frailty that I don't like associating with a Springbok team. I don't mind it as much for the Lions, because the Lions are the Lions. They can play whatever way they want. But the Springboks
need to have an attitude about them.
The Springboks. And like when there was a clip, it was after a Lions game actually, where he played particularly bad, because that was the other thing, is Yankees in the semi-final or in the quarter-final played pretty dreadfully, I thought. Semi-final also pretty dreadfully, and kicked awfully.
Well, the
as
two of them, Cronje and Yankees, got thoroughly outplayed by the two guys I would have picked at halfback, which
Kerwin Bosch,
Bosch and Cobus
Reinach. Yeah,
Reinach at scrum half and Bosch at 10. Bosch again is like a real wild card. He's on the bench. He's very young. He has his frailties and he has his off days.
But he's a little bit more like bullish in his approach, which is what you want.
Just an attitude that represents what the Boks are doing. Just a tough, in your face, up for the challenge.
Won't be rattled.
A bit like another man missing from the team, Combrink, who does play for the Lions, just has an attitude about him that just gives off this Springbok ethos of being tough, of being gritty, of being grizzled, and of being well up for the scrap.
When you look at Combrink, you're looking at him going like, there's a man now who Sevilla would struggle to bump off. There's a Springbok who would deal with him.
He's the kind of guy to stare down the posts, as he did in that Sharks match for 60
and land
meters,
the big kick,
and land it because it was to win, and that's what he wants to do.
And
like, that's a huge thing. It's just having these like dynamic personalities and tough personalities that can deal with adversity. And again, I don't know if Yankees is that. I don't think he is. In fact, he can be broken, and he would be broken.
Yeah, I've seen him broken. He came off for Faf in one of the games anyway, and I can't remember which one. Was it the Sharks game where it was zooming in? It was a close up of him, and he was just kind of whimper-eyed. He looked like he was nearly on the verge of tears, and I was just looking at this picture of like, and I'm not here to level insults the man. He is still he's a very, very talented professional player, but I just feel that frailty radiates through, and it seeps through a team. When we've seen it with Sexton in the RDS, we've seen a team like that have the 10 be totally reflective of how we play, and if the 10 goes badly, the ship sinks. And I fear for this ship sinking when it comes against the true adversity of the All Blacks, and I just don't think that Yankees is the man to do it. And we had the dry run for it, being the Super Rugby knockout stages where they weren't good enough.
Yeah, and even in those French tests in June, like that whole backline was carried by Jan Serpentine.
Indeed,
carried by him. He was the only.
And they were saying they were getting very little opposition from the French in terms of the French weren't asking many questions of them, but even in defence were very passive, and like sometimes you're made to look good, and like this is they could get through a fair few games yet before realising it'll only be in the All Blacks game when it's too late.
And I genuinely think there's a team now that can take it to the All Blacks in Ellis Park.
Are they going to be playing Raymond Rule and Yankees?
Exactly. Raymond Rule and Scossan is such a strange one. SP Murray, again, nowhere to be seen. Really tidy player from fullback. Love Andres Coetzee, wouldn't move him. He starts at fullback. But moving SP Murray to the wing, why would that be a bad shout? And then
Combrink on
the other wing. That's a tough team.
And bring Kerwin Bosch in. Maybe have Combrink kick for him if you want Kerwin Bosch to not. Although I think Kerwin Bosch likes a good kick as well, though.
And Cobus Reinach can really control a game from 9. And then you have those wild cards. Again, I wouldn't have Huhard near the team. I wouldn't have Cronje near the team. I'd have Faf on the bench. And I'd have Yankees can be on the bench.
Yankees on the bench, I suppose.
But again, like have those players, those little more dynamic, little more frail players to come on and change a game, perhaps,
rather than lean on them to set the tone.
Yeah,
because if they get rattled early on, they set a very bad tone. That then maybe like the players on the bench aren't necessarily going to be able to change it to the extent that they need.
So I'm a little frustrated with this selection. I'm a little frustrated with just the trend of where this coaching ticket are going. I don't know where Murray is. I don't know where Combrink is. I don't know why that's the decision that went. I don't know why Raymond Rule has done to make anybody believe that he's at the level of those guys. He's not. He's a really limited player, a clumsy defender, terrible fielder of a ball.
He reminds me of Varndell for Wasps. Reminds me of Varndell. He scores a few pretty tries against weaker teams in mid-January games.
Like Andrew Conway type. Like, I don't know. It's just like he's just out of it. He's not that good a player. And he's fun. He's got a fun name to say. He's quick. He can be dangerous. But he's be prone to just be standing under a ball for a little too long and just have it go completely through his fingers. Yeah, he's just not as technically proficient a player as any of those guys.
No.
That said, there's a lot of great players in this team.
And they make a card. This is it.
Yeah, there's a lot of game-breaking players who just get it in themselves to have big games. Malcolm Marx is just the latest in a long line of classy Springbok hookers. Sia Khaleesi is a man possessed at the moment.
Yeah,
he's doing
great
insane
form.
things. He's everywhere on the pitch.
He looks like one of the best in the world.
Yeah,
and like in that position,
super athletic and super good at poaching, but also just everywhere, carrying, tackling, making the big plays that need to be made.
Thinking Maro Itoje during the Lions tour, just that level of energy he's bringing to the game and table. He'll go all day.
With this many big game players, they
can
have
beat
what it takes to knock down Argentina.
They should.
In Port Elizabeth, I mean, you got to think this is a handy 5 points. But again, Argentina are a wildcard team who the Box have struggled with.
I think you're also like Argentina with the way they'll try and play the game means it could be 5 points just purely because there will be mistakes to feed off. From Argentina, there will be.
I believe we're at 4 tries still with the Rugby Championship.
And if we do, if we do have, it is still 4 tries, I think. And but if you have Jan Serpentine leading the defence from Narrow coming up in that blitz.
Yeah, they could be shut down pretty quickly.
They could shut down pretty quickly, and there could be a lot of chaos.
On the other hand, if they get it outside them, their Box are going to reverse.
They are, because as we said, we don't rate those two wingers on defence. I just don't rate their instincts.
What you can Santiago Cordero running down Raymond Rule's channel.
That's danger.
City.
Or Sanchez seeing Raymond Rule up in no man's land, kicking over his head. Yeah. Or seeing Scossan, who's guilty of doing the same thing as well. Those are two wingers that are just not like in all the ways that we complimented Dag. Those two wingers are not quite on the level in terms of their pendulum and their ground covered. So Coetzee will have a monumental task in terms of orchestrating that and making sure that there's no inroads to be found.
And there will be inroads available. The question is whether Argentina will
are they trying to exploit it, or are they going to be as lateral as sometimes they often too are?
Argentina are always a wild card. I definitely think their coach, that dude who's always I can't even remember his name, the dude with the black hair who's in it, like, he's a smart guy. He's taken a bunch of Jaguares who are after playing muck for 9 months and moulding them into something quite clever. So that he's actually thinking about the game a little bit. So they do tend to be surprising, especially at Rugby Championship time. They have a habit of peaking when it matters. Yeah. So again, Argentina are a wild card, and they could definitely be interesting.
They could beat Australia.
They could beat Australia. They could beat South Africa. Like, this game is a little bit of a wild card for that reason. But again,
if I see Yankees have another poor game, which I wouldn't be surprised to do, then I could see it being a long old day at the office for them. Even if they do end up getting the win, it'll be a scary one, you know.
Which again would just be another absolute confidence breaker in South African rugby. It would just be like, and again, like predicting in Port Elizabeth, like a half-empty stadium, again, then fans just looking dismayed and bored, and then getting lost, and just like everything that we want from the box to get back on that level, to have this occasion in Ellis Park with the planes and the full stadium and Bok fans believing, and that's what you want by the end of the season. That's what you want. And they're much more likely to do it than Australia, to rise up and produce something. They have the talent that Australia don't.
Yeah.
And I just foresee this like grisly, gruff little tournament for them where they just cannot get off this horse, and it might have to end with Coetzee losing his job unless he starts figuring this out quickly, because this selection in a number of key positions is wanting again.
Yeah, it's just wrong, because we've been watching the games that the players have been playing. We've been watching the business end of the Super Rugby season, and it's just wrong. You should be, the flaws that should be being found out and addressed are not being. The players that should be in certain jerseys aren't being put there. I
hope we get to see like Kerwin Bosch off the bench for 20 minutes. We get to see Kerwin Bosch play a bit and see what it looks like in a Bok jersey, because obviously really young guy. So
I don't know what the crack with Pollard is. Is he meant to return at some point during the Rugby Championship?
The dude is having more injury problems than Luke Fitzgerald. It has been a nightmare for him really since he burst onto the scene and beat the All Blacks. Scored that wonderful try. Scored two tries, I think, in that game. It was wonderful.
This is it. I don't want to be viewed as just being like dismissive of who was obviously like he runner up in the Super Rugby Championship in Yankees, but all that excitement
that happened in the last year. Like, they backed the Lions, who were runners up in Super Rugby last year, again after pulling off a bunch of great performances at altitude in Ellis Park. They backed this team, thought they were better than they were, packed the box full of them, and then by the end of the year they were losing to Wales, and they were just like all over the place.
Italy.
Yeah, they lost to Italy. Of course, they lost to Italy. Sorry, Wales. Yeah, well, they lost to Italy and then Wales. Jeez. But
shots fired, repeatedly fired.
But
and I fear for it again, because when I first saw Pollard, I may have said it on previous podcast, but when I first saw him on the under-20s, going, oh my god, he's one for the future. He played a little bit like Sexton and a young Sexton, in that he took it to the line, was bigger, stronger, and you're just looking at him going, oh, he's going to be class. And ever since I've seen Yankees play for the last 2 years in the Lions, I've really been watching Yankees and been thinking,
you were even critical of Pat Lambie, who I quite like, because he's not Pollard, and I definitely think
Lambie, if you have a fit Lambie right here right now, you start them over both of those boys, regardless of what's come before. He's a much more rounded 10. He's also less flappable.
100% less flappable, and as he did in that match that against the All Blacks that they won, found the winning kick.
They should just bring back Mornay.
Well, they're going to
bring back Mornay.
I think by the end of this tournament, I would be amazed if Mornay hasn't had at least a run out from 22. It's like they just don't have the numbers at 10, so they're going to have to bring him back at some point. It's like after
bring back Ruin. Ruin Pienaar drafted in to play 10
today. If they completely fail today, and it just all goes to kaput against this weekend, I should say, instead of today. If it all goes kaput against Argentina, they'll bring him back next week. If it's the Yankees' fault and then your man comes off the bench and starts kicking it out in the full, then they'll bring him back for next week, and he'll do the job. And
he'll be fine. He'll be grand.
But again, they're just not moving anywhere quickly.
Indeed.
That's frustrating. The other game is more clear cut.
New Zealand are going to struggle, and then Australia are going to win. Do you reckon? Australia for the win.
Damien McKenzie is back. He's in the jersey that
finally in the jersey, which means we were hinting, I think, the last time at some news that obviously must have been bogus. We heard that he was moving to Leicester, which was
I did us. Before I said it, because I didn't say it. I saw like a post of it. But I looked it up and I couldn't find it on any news sites. So again, like, maybe it's a rumor, maybe it's happening, maybe it's not. But if it was happening this year, he wouldn't be in the All Blacks team. He'd be in the Leicester camp. Like, Carvalho's gone, I believe. Cruden's gone. So Mackenzie's here, and he's starting at 15 for the All Blacks, and it's just glorious, joyous news that should have happened earlier this season. But
I'll take it. Happen against the Lions.
Yeah, but I'll take it.
He was player in the season for the Super Rugby. He didn't play the Lions.
Yeah,
played them once.
Played him once out of position and he got shafted, and we've been
we were there before. We had our fans. We now return to our we now return to our we need to talk about Damien McKenzie segment, because he's in the All Blacks now, and he has Ben Smith beside him from wing to help him out with some of the more the pressures of that, because he's going to have stuff to do. He is a very talented catcher of the ball, but he is vertically challenged somewhat in fullback role.
Again, like Damien McKenzie's one of these players who on paper, like, he can be a little frail in the tackle, but on paper, if you think you're going to target him in the air, you're just demonstrably not. He's freakish in the air.
He's one of those who when Dag is just when the Highlanders trying to chip over Dag's head all day long, and it's just not happening.
Not gonna happen. And even like physically, you're looking at the pitch and like, I will get him this time. He's miles away. I will get him. No, he covered it. And that's the same with Dag. It's like, he's small. We're gonna pressure him. Nope. He can leap into the air and grab it.
Yeah.
Ben Smith is a great insurance figure there.
Indeed. Yeah.
And having those
also
tools.
I want to see them on the left wing. I want to see Ben Smith in the James Lowe channel. And get that going on, because they can have carnage. And also, like we can work through, I suppose, the New Zealand team, but looking at the Australian team, my goodness,
it's not even close.
No.
What do you think of Sonny Bill getting straight back in there?
It's an interesting one. It shifts Crotty out of position. Now Crotty is a savvy enough operator. He'll do fine. He'll do beyond fine. And he's up against who do they have opposite? It's not Kurandrani. They have Karevi. Yes. So like I reckon there'll be more nuance in that 13 channel coming from Crotty's side rather than Karevi's.
They'll shut down Karevi, and then they'll try and replace Karevi with Kurandrani.
Yes, and more of the same. Yeah. And
they do like a spit of Sonny Bill. He adds a bit of versatility.
A lot of physicality as well. They want in terms of the protect Bowden principle. It's easier to do that when you have a Sonny Bill. You
don't really need Crotty as a distributor either. Like, Crotty has been making that role for the Crusaders of being a distributor, like a Serpentine role. You have to be next to your 10. But with McKenzie, he can slot in as a distributor any day of the week.
Indeed.
I hope they do let Damien be Damien, like the Chiefs do, because Damien is really free to roam from fullback in the Chiefs jersey, so he can come in and be first receiver, and he really helps put width on the ball and just add a change in dynamic in attack. And like, there's no quicker way than when you have Cruden and McKenzie together. There doesn't seem to be any way to just change the point of attack quite as quickly. No team has figured it out, and those two are really great at it. So I hope that the All Blacks don't like limit him and be like, okay, you're a fullback, but you behave like Geordie. It's like more like, you're Damien, be Damien, and I think they will. That's the way.
And I think, judging by having Ben Smith there as well, I think Ben Smith will be a bit more traditional role. Sometimes there will be free roam,
but like, let Damien be Damien, and when Damien's allowed to be Damien, he'll tear that Wallaby team
devastating. That Wallaby team is so disappointing. Do we have the Wallaby one there?
Yeah, it's there. It's this one.
Okay. Because dear, oh dear.
You just
but what is your man's name though? I need to find out, because he's a second row.
Rory Arnold.
No, not Rory
Rob
Arnold.
Simmons.
No.
The other dude.
Are they playing him at 6 for this time? He has the
Hannigan.
Ned Hannigan.
He's at 6. Yeah.
He's at 6 this time. Okay, he's a bit of a. I've seen him at second row before as well. He is dreadful. He's just one of these, another in a long line of players that are nowhere near the level coming from Australia, and is coming from the tide of Australia as well. So it's
the
going
team
to be
is CEO Scott CEO Moore, Alan Alatoa. I prefer Scopi Kepu to Alan Alatoa.
He's on the bench, which maybe is a bit of coy decision making.
Alatoa is probably a better scrummager, but I don't know. I still don't see them winning the scrum battle.
No.
Scott Seal is like the second coming a couple of years ago. He was going to be the guy who was going to change the Aussie scrum from bad to good, and he's just sort of
still getting outmatched.
In
terms of,
they're really weak at second row, though. To be honest, like, they have club level players at second row.
They do.
They're solid players, but they're just not physical enough. They're not strong enough.
They don't do, they rarely do enough. They don't emphasize when you think of the innovation that's come from in what second rows are doing from all New Zealand teams. When you think all the way down to like throughout, they're using them in a really clever way.
Thoughts that people are having, like coaches are having, like, we need a better way to transition from forward to attack, and this happened obviously a few years ago. We'll get it. Like, why not have a second row in there? They have lanky arms, they're big, they're strong, they can be dangerous, and we can use them to pass the ball. And it's just like created a skill for the second row position. And all of that, like, ingenuity and intelligence, it just isn't coming from Aussie rugby.
It isn't coming from Aussie rugby, and they're consistently being outmatched. And then players are getting overly praised in that position by their, like, it seems to be it builds on it, and they consistently don't recognise it as a glaring weakness. They're talking about their scrum being weak, and they're pointing the finger at the front row, but there's also, like, the engine room is in the second row as well. And, like, are we matching them physically there? Because it doesn't look like it when you're scrummaging against an Evan Etzebeth or a Brody Retallick.
Retallick and Sam Whitelock. We didn't mention them. What a combination again.
Indeed.
The All Black jersey. They're so used to them, but
Sam Whitelock, they're up against, like, Arnold and Coleman.
Sam Whitelock has been better this year than he's been in a long time.
He's been
well.
immense.
Like he's actually taken a step to a level we didn't know existed. He's right up there now.
He's up there with it. He reminds me of like a Matfield or a Paul O'Connell in their pomp as well, just like real attritional, in your face disruptors, and they'll talk all the time in the line out during your ball while you're trying to play. They'll talk all the time and like just get you doubting and give off this air of confidence that it's just like, I know what you're doing. I know what you're doing here. And then there, as we pointed out, there are a lot of young second rows in the modern game. A lot of them don't have that nous, that savvy that comes from just years of play.
Super Rugby conversation that a huge factor in the Chiefs' downfall was not picking Dominic Bird.
Yes, actually we didn't. Yes, we didn't touch on that at all. Yes, they didn't pick Dominic Bird. They picked instead, what's his name? He had an industrious kind of game. He was working really hard, but just
he played certainly had a better game against the Crusaders than he had in the previous
one. He had a poor game.
I can't remember his name.
Oh god, that's a frustration. But we were very much of the opinion it should have been Dominic Bird. You're going to be at a physical deficit anyway. You need your attritional second row in there from the start. Get your parity. But that's definitely a part of this Australian team that's just a glaring weakness, and I think it's one that'll be telling ultimately. Ned adding at 6, what is that?
And Michael Hooper.
Michael Hooper is a quality player.
I think he's the most capped player in that team.
He's captain as well.
120 captain is Stephen Moore. Stephen Moore's last season. Stephen Moore is no longer an elite level player either. He's just too old.
He is, indeed. He's kind of like if we were still picking Bernard Jackman or something. He'd be much the same. He puts the head down and runs hard, and he'll ultimately come second best.
Foley wildly out of form. Curtly Beale, like you talk about a wild card, they're throwing in Beale there because they have no other ideas. Samu Karevi, again, no sign of your friend Carmichael Hunt.
Was missing at 12. I would have hoped to, and he's not even on the bench either. Was it all because of that missed tackle all those weeks ago? That's bullshit. Carmichael Hunt needs to be in there. I like the idea of having him at 12 as well, especially if you're sticking with Foley.
You could do Beale and Carmichael Hunt at 12 and 13.
I think
just get rid of this Karevi or Curran Granny, which are basically the same player, just like athletes picking lines. And
you can shift them to even a wing or
something. They're gonna just be eaten up. Even Curtly Beale, like the idea I suppose of Beale is get the ball to Folau and space. So just have those two guys. Curtly
and
Beale.
Curtis Rona is a debutant, isn't he? At 11.
I don't know anything about him. We'll see what happens there. Their pack is so weak though. But in terms of ball in hand, like it's got to be Curtly Beale has got to be just disciplined enough that it's just your position in this team is we're going to get the ball wide. So we want the ball in.
To be honest, I think he's grown. Like Curtly Beale has grown it and become a very professional player. Hasn't been a long time, but I'd imagine he will do a professional job.
Just be a distributor.
I think he's a little bit too light though, and like he's up against. This is another thing. Like Sonny Bill Williams is going to be facing. There's a bigger man. I don't think he's a bigger man.
I don't think he could pick another big man though. In the Aussie second.
In the Aussie one, no, because they've always and to be honest, it is traditional Aussie play to have your two distributors, and that was what we were liking about Carmichael Hunt, was that he was playing well from 12. Though. No, he was good passes though. He found some great like the floated pass off the left hand over the blanket over the blitz defense.
He's more of a fullback or 13 to me. He's like a what would you call it? A versatile
utility
player. Yes, that's what the word was. But Curtly Beale working as a distributor, like I think he's there because they do have a Reece Hodge, but Reece Hodge again, even though he is a distributor technically, he's more comfortable taking the ball to the line and actually attacking teams. He'll be good off the bench. He's been the only competent thing to come out of the Rebels. But Foley, his job is get the ball into Folau's hands, and hopefully Folau can have the ball with a bit of space with a Henry Spade outside him, and that's where the danger is going to come if you can get it outside. But again, you're going to have Ben Smith making reads, so maybe Rico Ioane's wing. If you have like a McKenzie or
if you can set up a one-on-one with a McKenzie
or forward and then maybe get outside them, then you can get Spade into the game and then you can make interesting things happen.
Maybe
in general they're going to get stuffed though.
You can't see past just the stuffing that is to come. And I think the All Blacks are also a bit more battle hardened as well, like in terms of they have had more game time between Lions tours and finals in the Super Rugby. They've had more legitimate serious games. They have more confidence. Like Australia, this is the main task for Cheika, it seems, is to try and gel some kind of confidence together. I like some of the boldness of the calls. I like that it seems to be a selection with a mind to the future. It's
sure
trying to build on a 1 year, 2 year basis.
I think he's just putting the pieces together of the mess that he has.
Maybe
in front
that.
of him. Like
Yeah.
there really isn't a lot to work with. It's like it's fallen off a cliff. Like the dam has burst, or the house of cards has fallen.
Use whatever.
There's really not a lot in there now. Like I think they could drift down the rankings like lightning. I think
This could be the year that they lose to Argentina.
Yeah, lose to Argentina twice, lose to South Africa. Like they could lose every game in this tournament and then go and lose in the autumn. Hopefully not. They do tend to have some kind of attitude about them. But certainly if they play like they've been playing in Super Rugby, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like they won't beat Scotland, and they didn't beat Scotland. I think dark times ahead for Australia. Like that's all I can see. But hopefully something different happens. But I can't see any evidence for it.
No, and you're just judging on paper, as we have the digital paper up there.
That pack is
not good enough.
That pack is not good enough to compete with any of the top 10 teams. Like it's Georgian pack going back to do a better job. Like that's these guys in the second row, that whole front row. With the exception of Michael Hooper, the back row is pretty unimpressive too.
Yeah.
Like they just are club level players. They don't belong at this elite level of Test rugby, and it just looks like a team that is set for a season of getting curbed. And I don't know where it stops. Like it certainly doesn't. The book certainly doesn't stop at Czechia for this one. Like the book stops at development
the clubs
level.
And they've this is the other tragic news.
Yes, yeah.
The Western Force. What the fuck
gone
is that? The Rebels were the only decision.
The Western Force battled their hearts out for their survival, rallied together, got good crowds out. They have all this great development at Perth youth level.
We've said it all before.
Melbourne is a fucking rugby league city with AFL. You're not going to sell a union there. Certainly not with the Rebels, and you haven't. So I don't know what. I don't know enough. I don't know enough. I don't know enough about it.
But it's not. It's certainly nothing that's based on the evidence we've seen, which is just the games and the crowds.
There's obviously something
else
financial incentive to keep the Rebels alive and cut the Force that I'm not seeing. But this is an absolute travesty, and this is a great team that had a great send off to the season, but made bollocks out of ARU's favourite child, the Waratahs. Made bollocks.
Oh, that was another way to go back to our commentary thing. There was no better example of the ridiculous biased commentary from the Aussie blokes doing it there, because they're obviously East Coast boys and hated the notion of the West, like you said, the Western Force just doggedly upsetting the sexy Taz was what you were saying. Just that's not what happened.
It's just what they wanted to be true, was the Taz to be like this great but brittle backline team, and the Force to be the gritty team that undermined them with ugly play. As like what was actually happening was the Force were just outplaying them and scoring some lovely tries and get over it. But Force completely played themselves in, did it time after time after time, and everyone again on the internet and everywhere else is making the point that this is an absolute farce. But not that stopped rugby from going to shit in the last few years. Every time some stupid decision comes up from some high level people, the fans get outraged. We all get outraged. We point out how it makes absolutely no sense in any possible capacity, and it happens anyway. So this is another one of them.
I had a fear. I did say about it. I was just like,
I thought they'd done enough, but like it just seems like fans' opinion and logic and reason doesn't seem to matter.
Or is the direct read to go in the opposite direction of it, like all logic?
But like, there's a part of me now that just after the year he made that decision that is kind of looking forward to them just collapsing. Like, burn it down. I know Aussie's big for rugby, but just like, I'm so annoyed with them. Just burn it down and watch them lose every game from now until the end of time.
Perhaps though, like it's crazy to think. It's crazy to think when you do think back at what a powerhouse Australia has been for years. For all the years that I've been alive watching rugby, this is going to be the first time that they are really brittle. And I feel like the next time we play them, it'll be the first time I'll honestly be able to watch it, and there'll be a class difference between us and them, and we will win quite comfortably.
Well, that's the thing. Is like,
I think there's been hinting. There's been a shift of that. I think we have been the better team for the most part when we've met them the last few years. I think we're slightly more polished, slightly more efficient side. They always put up a fight. They always score kind of really quick fire tries, get themselves back in the game. That we're obviously they have a different ethos to us, which always makes them interesting games, because Aussies attack great off Gale's ball.
Good games,
they usually are. But I fear for the next time we meet that Ireland may just blow them away, same as a lot of the others. It may look similar to some of these Super Rugby, or not Super Rugby, these Rugby Championship games to come. They look, as much as we were criticizing South Africa based on the framework of like, you have to challenge the All Blacks now, you're not going to do that like this. That's the criticism for South Africa. Australia are a cut below. And that's South Africa
none of it,
team.
By the way, none of it is Czech's fault.
No,
poor Czech is just like heading into the Lions down here with nothing.
This is it, and he finished off last season so well. We said it before in the podcast that he left them all in great esteem. Had a lovely autumn with them. Had some good performances, good wins, and left them all back in to go and do their Super Rugby, and just watched an implosion, a farcical season from all of the Aussie clubs, with the notable exception of the Western Force for the final month or so of their tournament, playing some amazing rugby, but no, ignored in favour of Brumbies and Taz.
And obviously the Rebels
now as well.
Very frustrating and a shame. And the Aussies are going nowhere in a hurry. And like the idea of them coming to Dublin and winning is like as ignominious as Italy at this stage. It's like it's not a thing that's going to happen, and if it does, I will throw bloody murder at my country for letting it happen.
Indeed, it'll be a reflection of our team on the day. But
and I think they're gonna have what South Africa had last year, which is just this drift down the rankings. They're just going to fall and not stop falling. Because they're coming to Twickenham and Dublin then in the autumn. That's not going to help them. They're going to get no wins out of that.
Indeed.
They could probably lose their third game, whoever it's against. So
you're probably right.
I think the challenge, and I think we said this during the Lions tour, the challenge that's going to emerge to the All Blacks throne is going to come from the north this time. It's going to be either England or Ireland or possibly Wales or Scotland.
Maybe a few of them. I think the Northern Hemisphere could have a few of them up on the level come the next World Cup.
Well, certainly all four of those teams, all four of the British and Irish teams, excuse me.
What are you saying?
But dead right. But all four of those teams are in pole position to leapfrog Australia and the floundering South Africa under Poxy leadership, who obviously should be
not playing to their strengths. That's what's vexing about it. Like Combrink is exactly the type of player who embodies what I feel like a Springbok looks like is kind of a Combrink. He has a very austere face, very huge physical specimen, and a grit to him. Like you said, he'll nail it. He'll miss a kick that's easier, but then when he has the tough 60-yard kick for the win, he nails that one. Like and that's Springbok.
He has that attitude about him. I know he's a young man who makes mistakes, but he has that attitude about him.
He's not as exceptional as a Pollard. You don't see him running with the ball and think, ooh, menacing, when you see a Kerwin Bosch. So he's limited in that regard, but he's capable of having those performances where he kicks very well. He has the boot on, takes the game on.
And Cobus Reinach is a great man for controlling a game as well, which is what you want in a South African scrum half. None of it is about the box. It's like Coetzee doesn't come from South Africa. It's mad. It's every concern that you would have about a non-South African coach taking on the Bok job. Like, this is the reason that you don't pick non-South Africans is allegedly. It's like, oh, we don't want to lose the ethos. We don't want to lose what it is to be a Bok. You're losing it under this guy. He doesn't get it. And maybe someone from far will, but like, you may as well, if you're going to do this, if you're going to go down this road, you may as well just pick a Kiwi who knows what he's doing. But if you want to keep it South African, keep it the South African then. Don't be going in this mad direction, but whatever.
We're probably fired there, but I guess we're probably done. We're fired. Well,
it's a grumpy podcast.
It was a bit of a grumpy podcast. We've got a bit of whinging done. But there are some problems, and to be honest, with that Western Force thing and the Ireland, watching the Ireland women, we were a little bit groggy and grotty over it.
What I will say though is that in general, in great mood from New Zealand rugby in a healthy place. Damien McKenzie picked is wonderful news. Crusaders really did earn their salt in those last two games.
Great, worthy champions,
and a lot of fun to watch by the end of it. Chiefs as well, loved them. And they're like, I would be in such a good mood if I'd seen the Bok team just have those few selections that I pointed out earlier. But again, there is some good stuff happening in South African rugby, and lots of good rugby to come. And
the rugby, the Rugby Championship to start, and we have Leinster pre-season games happening. So it means that means it's nearly time for the
Leinster
Northern Hemisphere season again.
Leinster are so pushed at centre right now. Tom Daly got injured there before Ringrose and Henshaw are gone. Isa's at 12 this week. That's how pushed we are.
Whoa.
So we'll see how that develops.
Low may be a centre before too long.
We'll have to see.
He's got that spare tyre around his waist for it. So,
it's true enough.
But so there's a lot of rugby to come, obviously, and there's exciting times. We'll get another podcast done next week, probably leading into the knockout stages of the Women's World Cup. At that point,
they
will be done
this weekend. They might even be Sunday.
Right, we may be done.
Motoring on, they may be done. Yeah, well, maybe in advance of the final, but
we'll definitely reflect on the women's game as well.
The women's game kicks off in about 9 minutes,
right?
So we're done.
We are done, 100%. Hour and a half podcast, not so bad.
Not so
good
bad.
Content. Apologies for the delay as well. We had another impromptu hiatus due to just weird scheduling.
Life happens. Sometimes you're working all week.
Finds a way.
So
end with a Jeff Goldblum quote.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we'll try and be back sooner rather than later. But appreciate everyone listening, and
absolutely.
See you now.
Don't be a stranger.
Bye.
Bye. Well, haven't eaten in a good long while now.
now.
Yeah, it's a long drought.